Breaking news out of the Pittsburgh area as the recently rebranded Acrisure Stadium was caught burst into flames overnight. And by the time fire and rescue had arrived on the scene, the stadium was in an unrecoverable state, burnt nearly all the way to the ground. Investigating officers have stated that arson is suspected due to the multiple points of origin, the rate at which the fire spread, as well as the temperature. And while there are currently no suspects as to who caused this tragedy, Twitter certainly has no shortage of takes on the issue. Steelers ownership, led by Art Rooney, is obviously devastated by this news, and while Mr. Rooney was not available for comment, Fiend News has gotten information that Mr. Rooney does not plan to rebuild the stadium, but rather sell the team. And while there are certainly no shortage of suitors for the brand new acquirable franchise, the winner was a bit surprising as Adam Sandler, an actor who has played a role in the production or acting in multiple sports movies, won the bidding rights to the franchise. And Mr. Sandler has no intention of keeping the team in Pittsburgh, but rather to relocate the franchise to the town in which he grew up, Brooklyn, New York. When it came to the branding of the new team, Adam and a lot of fans, as he took to the polls here, decided to go with the Brooklyn Bulls. In terms of uniforms, a blue, yellow, and white color scheme was the winning choice, and a stadium was to be domed, something not common among NFL teams in the New York area. The next step in the new franchise was to find somebody to be the coach and the GM. And so, in perhaps the most surprising decision of all, YT Fiend Gaming was elected to fill both positions. And while his track record maybe made him an obvious choice for the GM role considering his success in his previous stint, no coaching experience makes the coaching hire a little bit suspect, but Sandler quoted that it was an important decision, and part of the fact that he was willing to join the franchise was to have more power than he had in his previous stint with the San Antonio Express. Previously, when the NFL has had expansion or relocation teams, there has been an expansion draft for teams like the Texans or the Panthers or the Jaguars. This will not be the case this time around. Instead, Sandler and YT Fiend Gaming have elected to sell off the best of their players in order to attain additional draft capital that will allow them to have an additional pick in rounds 1 through 3 in each of the next 2 years of the draft. And then all the remaining players will be cut from the franchise, as is the preference of YT Fiend Gaming. He wants to build the roster using the draft only, and so after the trades for the required capital are complete, all remaining players will be off the team, and the team formerly known as the Pittsburgh Steelers will forfeit all games in the 2022 NFL schedule. All that was left for Sandler and Fiend Gaming to do was to fill out a coaching tree and scout for the very crucial NFL draft ahead. Which brings us to today. What's good, everybody, and welcome back to the channel for a brand new series here. An expansion draft only franchise with the Brooklyn Bulls. That's right. If you look at our current roster count, we are at 0 of 75 players. We are starting from nothing and trying to build a team with only rookies here to see if we can't go from nothing to a perennial contender using only the draft. Typically in an off-season episode, I would review what happened in free agency. Since this is just the first episode of the franchise, we're not really doing that. I could just give you a quick recap. Not a lot happened in this first free agency. There were only like a couple guys above 85 overall that changed teams. Josh Allen, the pass rusher, went to the Seahawks, and Juju Smith-Schuster went to the Giants. Those are kind of only the big moves. In terms of in our division, I think only one player above 80 overall moved, and that was Ben Powers of the Ravens, who was cut so that they could afford Lamar Jackson. And so that's kind of it in terms of the free agency recap. Let's get into this draft, which is, of course, the most important aspect of a franchise like this. And for this first draft, and for this first draft only, I am using a draft class that I have used before. If you are new to this channel and this is kind of the first video you've ever seen on this channel, the only reason we are doing this franchise is because the franchise I had been working on previously, also an expansion draft only franchise, was corrupted by EA servers and is unrecoverable. I have not been able to access it for 2 weeks. I don't know if I'll ever be able to access it again. And so I had a franchise going, got corrupted. Obviously, that's not something you're going to be very happy about. So to kind of reward myself for putting up with EA's crap, I am using a draft class I have used before. This was the first draft class I ever had on Madden. It was part of my Chicago Bears simulation franchise. The first draft there, that franchise didn't really get a bunch of momentum. It ended after just 20 or so episodes. And so the reason I wanted to use this class, and the reason I'm calling it rewarding myself, is there is a generational prospect here in Deacon Burgess, somebody I drafted in that Bears franchise to be the #1 receiver. And someone I want to start this franchise with here. He only got like 1.5 years into his career, and so he's kind of this super promising career that kind of just ended out of nowhere. EA ended the career of an entire team in my San Antonio Express franchise, which was frustrating. So I thought, since all those franchises came to an abrupt end, I could reignite another career that had been stopped previously. And so because I know a little bit of this about this draft class, there are some players that are really good that I'm keeping off my draft board. I'm allowing myself to cheat here with Deacon Burgess, but I'm not going to allow myself to cheat with anyone else. So let's just go through a few players, just so that when we review the class, you're not like, why the heck was this guy not on your board? He's sick. It's because I already knew he was sick and I didn't want to cheat. First one is Kerry Gilkey here. I know he is an X Factor, I should say. So not going to draft him, already knowing he's an X Factor. I'm going to allow myself to cheat with one X Factor, not with anyone else apart from that. Another guy that I know is high dev is this center. The first center on the board is Greg Wilds. It's kind of like a late first round prospect here. I know he is superstar, so I am not allowing myself to draft him. And the third and final one, at least the people that I didn't draft, we'll go through a couple of the people that are off my board after this. This one hurts the most by far. It's Reggie Levine. He was really high on my draft board in that Bears franchise that I did. I ended up trading up out of his range. Instead of drafting him, I know he's like a 76 or 77 overall X Factor guy that you're getting in round 3. That would have been a sick pick for this franchise. But like I said, I'm allowing myself to get like a really good player at the first overall pick, but I'm not allowing myself to cheat further than that. So those are 3 players that I know are great in this class, not allowing myself to draft. There are also a few other players that I drafted in that Bears franchise, so I know what they are, that I don't want to draft. One is Dylan Owens. I know he's a star dev center, and he's available super late in the draft, so I'm not going to select him. Just getting a guaranteed star dev, offensive lineman in like round 5, I feel like it's just a little bit cheesy. Don't want to do that. And then we have a punter that I know is hidden dev here in Miguel Parra. Yeah, it's a punter. Who cares? Still, don't want to cheat with a hidden dev punter. And there's one more player that I know is dev and rating, but I'm not keeping myself from drafting him because I don't think it's an overpowered pick. Here in Raheem McKinney, he's a right end. He's the athletic dude with A finesse moves. I know he's star dev, and I know he's 74 overall, maybe 73. So within 1 overall, plus or minus of 74. And I just feel like as a late one, a guy that you have to draft late in the first round, getting a star dev 74 overall player is not, overpowered. It's a good pick, but not like some OP pick. So I'm keeping him on my board for that reason. He was also somebody that had a young, promising career in my Bears franchise. And so if we were to draft him and continue that career, it kind of goes with the same thing with Deacon Burgess. There are two guys that I'd have to draft early, and only one of them is kind of OP here in Deacon Burgess. So that it kind of goes through the players that I remember that were really good from this class, or just really remember in general. So let's get into the rest of this class. If we go into my favorite sport here, I have 76 players on my board. And so going through every single one of them and why I like them probably just would take too much time, and this video would run super long. When you need every single position on the football team, you're gonna tend to have a bigger board. You're gonna probably lower your standards a little bit as to what you're looking for when you need everything at every spot in the draft. So instead, we're just gonna go position by position and maybe talk about my favorite player, maybe my top 2 players at every position, just to get a feel of who I actually probably will draft rather than just everyone that I've considered drafting. Starting here with quarterback, there's kind of 2 guys that I would consider. The first here is Kevin Thomas. He's the second ranked quarterback on my board. I have them ranked by where they're projected to be drafted rather than where I would draft them personally. But here we see he's 6'5", 243, 23 years old, out of Georgia State. He has great throw power, not a mover at all, but he's got a pretty good arm, B deep accuracy, C short, C to F medium, B play action, and B under pressure. Pretty decent combination of ratings there. Of course, medium accuracy isn't going to be good at all, but for a guy that you can get in the third or fourth round, I think he's pretty good. If you look at the draft class as a whole, my philosophy when it comes to building the draft-only team is I don't want to draft a quarterback in year 1 unless he looks generational. Charlie Atkins looks decent. He doesn't look generational just because if you draft a quarterback early, I'm pressing the wrong buttons here, he's either going to do one of 2 things. He's going to make your team win more games than it should, which is going to hurt our draft position when we're still, after this draft, going to need a ton of players. We're not going to even be close to a competitive team. So just having a good quarterback, we're going to win more games, hurt our draft position, when probably at least next year too, I want to have a top 3 pick. Or like the team around him is going to be so bad that you just kind of waste the first couple of years of his career. A lot of where, the quarterback can dev up really fast, as we saw in the San Antonio Express franchise. I'm going to try not to mention the San Antonio Express franchise as often as I can throughout this series. I want it to be its own series. I don't want to compare it to the San Antonio Express or anything. It's going to be hard this episode not to mention that Express series just because it is so new. The switch over, and I'm trying to compare how we started this franchise to that one to see if I like this format better. But anyway, my favorite quarterback in this class is Eli Palmer here. 6'1", 217, not nearly as big as Kevin Thomas, but 21 years old, and in terms of his athleticism, he has a better arm, and he's got at least decent mobility, good speed, solid acceleration. So better athlete, doesn't have the size, but he's younger, has a better arm. And in terms of accuracies, they're in different spots, but they're really similar. He has a B, a C, and a C to F, same as Kevin Thomas. B under pressure is also the same. Play action is not as good, but that's fine, especially because we're drafting a quarterback in the mid to late rounds here. I am not looking for a guy that I am counting on being the guy. If he turns out to be good and he turns into the long-term quarterback of this franchise, awesome. But I'm not necessarily counting on it. I'm just don't want to go to the UDFA market for quarterback because those quarterbacks are usually awful. Next position here is running back. And the 2 guys I want to preview the most are the top 2 guys. I think there's a couple guys here in the mid rounds. Of course, Reggie Levine, the guy that I don't want to draft, I think is the best player, but we can't draft him. Here, I think, are a couple pretty decent consolation prizes. First in Terrence Davenport at USI, who's 22 years old. Definitely power back size. His athleticism is good. Skills-wise, A stiff arm, A stamina, B vision, B break tackle. Trucking, I would imagine, would be on the higher end of that range, whereas spin move, I would imagine, would be on the lower end of that range. But you're talking about a power back who has decent athleticism and decent power back ratings. I think he'd be a good third-round pick. Somebody you could probably get around later here in Rashad Grimes here. Also a 22-year-old running back. Obvious power back size. Not as good of an athlete here, though. So he would be the RB2 on my board. Terrence Davenport is my favorite running back in the class. But Rashad Grimes may not have the athleticism, but his ratings are better. A vision, A break tackle, A stiff arm, A to C trucking. I'd imagine that's A or B, honestly. So in terms of the ratings, I'm imagining he's going to be like a high overall. He's going to be 74, maybe at least a 73, but I'd guess 74 plus. Maybe even 75 plus. Like, those power back ratings are really good, just not quite as athletic. And, the athleticism ratings are a lot harder to upgrade than, the power back ratings. So these are my two guys. Nick Jeffrey is kind of like Rashad Grimes' athleticism with Terrence Davenport skills. So, and then these two guys kind of just suck, honestly, if I'm being real with you. Johnny Langford's the only fullback on our board. We'll just preview him quick here. 6'3", 257. Really good athlete, great strength, elite speed. You'll love to see it. B run block. He's a really solid blocker with the elite athleticism. That's a combo that you want in a fullback. So maybe we take him late in the draft. Probably not, but maybe. Here, receiver. Already talked about him a little bit. I already know what Deacon Burgess is as a player, but let's just go through him in his prospect card here. Definitely about as good of a prospect as you can get here. Elite strength, elite speed, elite acceleration. These are the things that make a 5-star prospect. I haven't really been talking about the star system that I'm implementing in this year quite yet. You see over on the right-hand side of the screen. But, you take one look at him, and it's pretty easy. You saw the 4 A's in the, kind of in this screen right here. Yeah, he's got a lot more than 4 A's. 3 here on the left side, an awareness, deep route, and run block. A spec catch as well, carrying, catching traffic, catching, medium route, release, stiff arm, a bunch of A's. Short route is a B, so that's still really good. The only thing that kind of drags his 5-star rating down, as you see, is his stamina and injury combination are not good. He only gets 2 stars because he has a D and a C there. That's not very good. Other than that, honestly, a perfect prospect. Somebody that we will be taking first overall. Don't want to create any drama. We're not trading down. You have a player that is that good, you just take him. Another guy I want to talk about here is Johnny Lovelock. He was a tough player, for me to rate here. 6 foot, 197, 22 years old, out of Mississippi State. Not an incredible athlete, only decent speed, solid jumping. What's that going to be, like 87, 88 speed? Not great. 4.6 at the combine. Proved a little bit there at his pro day. This is why I like the player. A, we know he's a round 1 talent. We know he's a top 20-ish player in this draft. And then you might be looking at this, seeing a lot of D's and F's and wondering why I rated him as a 5-star player in terms of talent. Let's look at him solely as a slot receiver, right? Maybe like an Amon-Ra St. Brown build, or maybe when Madden 23 was released, because now he's a lot better. Amon-Ra St. Brown is blossomed into a really good receiver this year for the Lions, but maybe 2021 Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? A short route, he's going to get open on the underneath routes. And when he does get open and we target him, he's going to catch it with A catching, right? He's got open, he's made the catch. He's going to have A vision to be able to find the seam to get yards after the catch. And he's got A spin move to make a man miss. In terms of just kind of a playmaking slot receiver, I think he's really good. B break tackle as well. There's a couple, not everything is great with him in terms of a slot receiver, right? He has C catching traffic, which you'd probably like to be higher for a slot receiver. C run block, probably like to be higher for a slot receiver. But man, those skills are great. If you look, I guess it doesn't show it here, but he's dropped 38 slots in the draft. That is because he has F injury. It was not always F injury. Before he was a round 2 to 3 guy, I think. Maybe he was even a late round 1 to 2. I can't remember. Whereas I wasn't sure if I was going to draft him in those rounds, but then he dropped. Of course, F injury is something I try to avoid at all costs. That's why I have it in my star system. It's like injury and stamina are things you can't really upgrade, and you want them to be high. Unfortunately, in this case, they're not. But if I can get a guaranteed top 20 rated prospect in round 3, you're willing to overlook maybe a couple of words like injury in order to do so. Tight end is another class that I like a lot, particularly these two Florida tight ends. And despite the fact that we know he has a lower rating, Sean Oglesby is my top rated tight end in this class. I imagine the difference there is probably only like 1 overall. But let's get into the player here. 6'3", 255, 21 years old. The athleticism, elite strength, great speed, good acceleration. Above average in all of those areas. And let's also take a look here at the skills. A awareness, A short route, A stamina, A pass block, A catching traffic, A catching. As well as B run block, B trucking, B deep route, B impact block. He's got a lot of A's and B's in areas that are very important for tight end. And he's only got one thing that's below a C, and that's run block power. That's fine by me, especially because he's a little bit of an undersized tight end, hence his lower size rating on our stars little rating board here on the side. Justice Bowman backed him up in college, but looks to be just as good of a pro prospect. I imagine that Florida team ran a ton of 12 personnel last year. In terms of his athleticism, great strength, great speed, great acceleration. We take a look here. Not as many A's as Oglesby. A awareness, carrying, catching traffic, and catching. Still has a lot of B's in other areas that are good though, but B short route, B medium route, B pass block, C run block, C deep route, B trucking. He's another guy where there's only one thing that's below a C, and that's his stamina. Of course, stamina is something that I would prefer to not be F, but B injury helps balance that out a little bit. So even though we know he's technically a better talent, the fact that he's 1 year older as well, and I imagine that difference is at most 2 overalls. I would imagine it's only 1, honestly, just because it's hard to see all these ratings from Sean Oglesby and say he's got more than like a 1 overall get. I honestly thought he'd be better, or at least higher overall. So these are my top 2 tight ends. I would love one of these 2. There's a couple guys here in day 3 that are solid in case we miss out on them. Here, offensive line. Not a great offensive line class, especially when we, removed one of the better value picks at the center position from our board. But let's just get into a few guys that I feel like are pretty good here. Tim Shields, late first round talent, maybe early second. 21 years old, good size. Not the best strength, but we can get that coach boost that gives you +4 strength to all your offensive linemen. So if I have to sacrifice one of speed or a little bit of strength for an offensive lineman, I typically prefer to sacrifice a little bit of strength just because of that reason. We get the basically free +4. His ratings aren't incredible. Like, I like this guy. This is not a guy that I would typically have on my board. Like, if he was a later round prospect, absolutely. But a lot of these ratings, like C pass block and run block, and we're talking about maybe spending a late 1 on him, probably not. But if you slipped into round 2, more in the conversation. Another guy I like here at center is Taylor Ramirez, 21 years old, 6'2", 302 is center only size, which is the thing I like least about him. I also don't like that his speed isn't great. It's pretty average. Solid is about as average as you can get. So it's going to be somewhere in the mid 60s. I prefer higher speed than that, but the ratings are good. B pass block and run block. B in both of his finesses. D run block power. I imagine that pass block power is not going to be B, but A to C in awareness, impact, and lead block as well. I like this guy. He's on my short list in terms of mid-round prospects. And then for right tackle here, all these, there's a couple guys here in round 1 that I like, but we're not going to draft them. They're going to go before we really get our second pick probably. And I'm not really looking to trade up in this first round, as we'll get to once we get more into the game plan. for now. But those are kind of the two linemen that I would say are most likely to be drafted by us. Thaddeus Green here, left and 6'3", 261 at 21 years old. B finesse moves. He's got great speed and acceleration, which you like to see. He just got a decent floor in terms of B finesse moves and some athleticism, and him being young. You may be wondering why I have some people at different, stars in terms of team need, because we have everything. And I just felt like if I put, even though we do need everything, I felt like if we put everything at 5 stars, it would just kind of overinflate the star rating for this entire class. And so what I decided to do is I put, how would I build a team from nothing? Like, where do I feel like it's important to invest early? And I decided offensive and defensive line I want to get a good start with in this draft. So I put those ones at 5. Felt like corner and receiver are kind of the next tier. So I have all corners and receivers at a 4-star need. And I just kind of put everything else, the quote unquote lesser position value positions at 2 stars, except for kicker, punter, and fullback, which I have at 1 star. So that's, if you're wondering why I have the team need distributed that way, that was my thought process behind it. Rakeem McKinney, talked about him a little bit. He's definitely high on my board in terms of a late first-round prospect, just because, like I said, he had a promising young career in our Bears series. Well, I like to see that career through, whether that's on my team or another team. I guess it remains to be seen. 6'6", 271 at 21 years old, though. That's elite size and age. So you love to see that. And then he's got elite athleticism to top it off, elite speed, great acceleration, good strength. I think that gives him insight. The combination of his athleticism and his size gives him good inside-out versatility, where we could maybe play a 3-4. I'm kind of inclined to play a 3-4 in this series, just to differentiate from my Express series, which we played a 4-3 in that one. Of course, B awareness, B play block, shed, and A finesse moves, B tackle as well. We see he has no Fs, just a really, really solid player. He shows as a 4-star prospect, but he's honestly a pretty high-end 4-star prospect. There's a lot to like about Rakeem McKinney. Defensive tackle here, a couple guys I want to highlight is first, Jermaine Bryant. He still has a 4-star rating, despite being a potential UDFA. He's the only 4-star player, except for I think there's a kicker that's this low available in the draft. And you see, mostly it's because he's at a position of need and he's 21 years old. That kind of boosts his rating a little bit, but he's also not a bad athlete. Great strength, solid speed, and great acceleration, something you can get this late in the draft. So that's really good, especially for that, again, part of the draft, like a potential UDFA with that kind of athleticism. If it was high into the draft, I wouldn't be as impressed. But he also has the potential to maybe have A block shedding, and he has the run stopper archetype. So that gives you hope that it's at least hopefully an A or a B and not that C. Even if it is a C, though, I think that's a very solid investment to make late in the draft. Somebody I like in the mid rounds here, Rashad Wilson, 6'4", 300 pounds basically, 22 years old, out of Wisconsin. Same college as Rakeem McKinney here. Doesn't have the elite strength or anything, but he is elite at this speed and acceleration. Very athletic dude, 6'4". I like him a lot. I imagine that finesse move is going to come out at an A. In terms of, pass rushing linebackers, Donald Norwood is my favorite player, but in this, he's probably my second favorite player in the draft. But we have basically 0% chance we're going to draft him, so I'm not really going to preview him here. Cleet Oliver, that's a day 3 guy with great speed, great size, great age, and B finesse moves. He is very high on my day 3 board here. I don't know if he's going to be some great player, solid strength. Marginal acceleration is definitely unfortunate. Doesn't really have any A's. He has a few A to C's that might turn into A's, but I feel like he's just going to be a solid day 3 pick. He's on my short list for day 3. Middle linebacker here. I don't love this middle linebacker class. My favorite guy would be Emmett Wise here at 22 years old, 6'3", 234. Good strength, great speed, and acceleration, A-zone coverage, and awareness. He's pretty good. Only ends up with a 3-star rating, though. My favorite off-ball linebacker comes in as a right outside linebacker in Kurt Banks here. He's younger, doesn't quite have the size, but that extra year of development is crucial, especially when, we're going to be a really bad team this year. And so I want the extra year of him developing and getting better, because it's going to take a long time for our team to get good as well. But obviously an elite athlete here, decent strength, unfortunate, but you also have to consider, like, he's also being compared in strength to edge rushers, where he shouldn't have. He's probably like, he'd maybe be like good strength or whatever if he was in the middle linebacker. So a lot of A's to see here, but I'm pretty confident just based on how Madden generates prospects that at least zone coverage is going to be A, man coverage might be a B. It's really whatever. A awareness, A injury as well. Love high injury. So Kurt Banks, the only 4-star off-ball linebacker on my board. Pretty motivated to draft him. I'd like to try to get as many of the 4-star players in this draft as we can. So let's talk about corners here. Very kind of mid corner class, if I'm being honest. I have a lot of players on my board just because it's a position I hold of great value, as you saw with, as I talked about earlier, as well as just review a player. It is a 4-star need for us. So very motivated to draft one. My favorite of the early round guys is Pat Hayward here, even though we know he's technically like a lesser talent, around 1 to 2 talent compared to the guys that we know have been around 1 talents. They're all kind of this level of athlete, honestly. It's kind of solid, good, average athletes with good size, at least for the most part. B zone coverage, C man coverage. What puts Pat Hayward above the other guys for me is the A catching. There is a build of corner in Madden, and I think they tend to be zone corners as well, which he is in this case, where they have like super high catching, like it's in the 80s or something. And that's one of the builds that has a high superstar dev chance. And so I think this looks like the player that could be a superstar corner. And so for that reason, I would give him the edge. He's also available later than these other 2 guys that we know around 1 talents. So especially because he dropped 15 spots. He's another guy kind of like Johnny Lovelock, the receiver that we talked about earlier, where he was originally projected. I wasn't very keen on drafting him. But considering that, we'll talk about later once we get to mock draft 5, he might not even go in the first round, and he might be available with pick 33. It's a lot more tempting to draft a player like that. Guys that I like later, I liked Eric Stewart, but he had the other end where he jumped 71 spots into a spot of the draft where I don't know if I would take him. He's very much so a project. He's just a 6'3" corner. I like John Atkinson now, I would say, is my more favorite mid to late round corner now. Average to above average athleticism, good size. He's at least C in man coverage. Could be C in zone. I imagine he's not. It's probably D or F, honestly. But B press, B catching. Really solid athlete. Really solid size. At least decent in man coverage as well. Another guy we had in our Bears franchise, we had him as a UZFA and we switched him to safety, but he was kind of making some plays in our dime packages there for us. Zone guys, yeah, I have to imagine that man coverage ends up being D. He's also 23 years old, which I do not like, but there's Duron Foot for you. In terms of safety play, don't really like any of the early round safeties as we see it, free and strong safety. There's a lot of guys on our board, but none that I would particularly target. A guy I like here is a day 3 guy, is Matthew Jefferson. He is great speed, good acceleration, great agility, good change of direction and jumping. So above average athlete for sure. Strength's not there. But A to C zone coverage, probably not going to be A. If it would be A, that would be sick, but probably B or C. But that's still good for a day 3 player, especially with that size and athleticism. Another guy I like as a potential UDFA here is Jesse Byers, 21 years old. Solid, but if unspectacular size, but he's got B hit power and B man coverage. Mostly just average athleticism, but good size, good age, good ratings. Somebody you can get that late in the draft, or maybe even as a UEFA. I like him a lot. Strong safety, I just kind of talked about. I don't really care too much about these players. And kicker and punter, I'm just not going to waste your time. There's a couple guys that I like. We'll see if we take him in round 7. And that brings up the mock draft 5, which we want to talk about here. It has us taking Andrew Gaines. Spoiler alert, as I've already said, we're taking Deacon Burgess, not risking trading down or anything like that. So we'll be taking Deacon Burgess. Our second first-round pick in this year's draft is at 20. Not really planning on taking a safety here. I'm planning on trading down. And I'm planning on trading down into the area where we can draft from Rakeem McKinney, who's currently projected to go at pick 27. Before mock draft 5, as you see, he's gone up 8 spots. He wasn't projected to go in the first round. Ooh, I just noticed this time around. Trevor Hall is actually my favorite offensive lineman in this draft. But just because he was a round 1 player, I assumed he would go before the 20th pick. This shakes things up from what I had planned going on here. My plan was already pretty difficult to figure out. Trevor Hall, I guess we have to preview him now, since he's actually in a draftable range for us. 21 years old, 6'5", 316. My actual favorite offensive lineman. Average athlete. That's not his calling card, but in terms of ratings, look at that top row. A awareness, A impact, A to C injury, A to C lead block, A pass block finesse. Just tons of A's. A to C stamina as well, A to C pass block power. And so he's obviously a pass protecting player, but his run blocking doesn't even look that bad either. C run block power. And B to D and run block finesse. Like, this player looks good, man. This shakes up my thought process. And normally somebody that is only a solid athlete would never be my favorite offensive lineman. But like I said, it's a pretty weak offensive line class. But that being said, I don't want to not have good offensive line for year 1. Yeah, offensive line is the slowest position to develop in Madden. So you want to get on it early. I'm willing to take a first on a guy that's not a great athlete, though. Athleticism is so important to offensive line. It's important to every position. But in terms of, especially at tackle, if you don't have great speed, some guys are just going to blow right by you in terms of as a run blocker, getting to the second level and making the key block before the running back gets there. But the ratings, man, and the age and the size, it's really the only hesitation with him is his athleticism. Everything else about Trevor Hall is great. That is tough. What do we do? What would you do? Would you draft Rakeem McKinney or Trevor Hall? Both 4-star players on our big board. This is tough. I guess now would be a good time to talk about something new that I'm trying on the channel in terms of the draft. You've been seeing how I've been rating the players in terms of, the star ratings that I've been giving them. Well, something that I want to implement that won't really come into effect until next season is right here with this Bulls big board that you're seeing right here. And with this Bulls big board, this is a link that will be in all of the descriptions of my videos. You will always have access to my big board. So after this draft, if you wanted to take a look at the whole draft, in and of itself, every player on my board, because of course I didn't go over all 76 players this year, this is where you can do it. Just click the link in the description. I'm only giving viewing access to this big board, but I also give you the opportunity, if you would like, to click this right here, download, and if you have access to Excel, you can click on Excel, and then from there, you could sort guy I have access to by position. If you only wanted to see what was the edge position like in this draft. Oh, we had 3 4-star players here, and so whatever, you can do whatever you want with that. So my favorite part about this though is if you're like, wow, he has a 4-star Jermaine Bryant. I mean, we already previewed him, right? But if you're like, why was Jermaine Bryant a 4-star player? Here's where you have the breakdown. This is what I show in the videos, whereas here on the big board, it only shows their star rating. This is where you can get the in-depth breakdown of how they got their star rating. So I think this will give viewers of the channel, fans of the series, people who are invested in the franchise, an opportunity to maybe have a bigger role in how we do the draft. And it can incite more conversation, like, wow, you have, let's just take for example Johnny Lovelock. I think one of the toughest decisions I had to make is putting him at 5-star skills, right? Because we saw in his profile he has a lot of D's and F's, but in terms of like as a slot receiver only, there was a lot of A's there. Maybe you're like, no, he's not. He's too one-dimensional to get 5-star prospects. I think he should be a 4-star prospect. You can comment that in a YouTube video, and then we can have a discussion. You can have an impact onto how these players are rated throughout the year. And so previously in my San Antonio Express franchise, I would talk about the players and I'd just give them a star rating that I kind of just pull out of my head, right? I'd be like, based on what I've seen from this player, he's like probably a 3-star prospect or a 4-star prospect. But, depending on how I felt when I recorded that episode, maybe I was more generous with giving 4 stars one time and more generous or not as generous than others. So which is kind of subjective. And I wanted a more detailed system where everyone was being graded on the same scale. Gives me a better idea to be better organized when it comes to the draft. I know, how did I know who I wanted to preview for this episode? Well, I knew I wanted to preview all these 4-star players, right? And all the 5-star players, because those are the players that are going to end up being on my short list. I know I want at least one of these receivers, maybe 2. We only have 1 4-star tight end, so he should be pretty high on our board. I want at least one of these 4-star offensive linemen, only 1 linebacker. Just stuff like that. It gives me a better chance to know how I want to attack the draft and how I want to prioritize players. And again, you will have access to this, but only as a viewer, not as an editor. If you want to edit, you will have to download it here from file download. So that's kind of all I have as my spiel for how I am planning to change the draft compared to how I did it with the San Antonio Express. Hopefully this is a feature that you guys like and will utilize. If not, at the very least, it's a tool for me to be better organized in how I attack the draft. But back to the game here. With that being said, let's create ourselves a little bit of a game plan. Because the game plan I had when I first recorded this episode is not the same as it is now. Some things need to change, I think. Okay, let's get into it. Might go into our favorites here. Deacon Burgess is our #1 pick. That part has not changed. What's changed is how I plan on to attack later. And what also hasn't changed, plan on trading down from 20 into about the 25 or 26 range to draft someone. Will that be Trevor Hall? Will that be Rakeem McKinney? I know some of you are saying you have a bunch of picks, draft both of them. I don't know if I want to trade up in this draft. That's the problem here. Because I know I'm referencing the Express again, but this is kind of what I was hoping for when I started a new franchise, that I'd reduce the number of picks to the extra picks that I got to the point where I'd have to make decisions. Again, if you're new to this channel and this is the first video you've seen with the Express, I did mostly the same thing, except I gave myself a ton more picks in that series than I'm giving myself in this one. And that one I had 2 picks in rounds 1 through 3, just like I do here. Then I had 3 picks each round for rounds 4 through 7 in year 1. And I had 2 picks in every round for year 2. So that translated to 32 picks in the first 2 years of our franchise. Whereas in this series, I'm only giving myself 20 picks in the first 2 years of this franchise. That's a difference of 12. That is a very big difference in terms of picks. And so I have to decide whether I'm going to be trade up and reduce the number of picks I have, or if I'm going to trade back and try to fill some holes on the team. And that's a very tough decision that I think makes just the draft more fun, right? I trade back, get Rakeem McKinney, and then I probably have to use the pick that I got to trade back up for Trevor Hall. That's certainly an option. But we can get two, high-end players, 4-star prospects that I really like. That sacrifices the middle of the draft. Let's just say hypothetically, I trade back to get Rakeem McKinney, and then I use the same pick that I acquired in the Rakeem McKinney deal to trade back up into the next slot to draft Trevor Hall with the 33rd slot. So now I don't have the 33rd pick. Pat Hayward becomes off the board. Our next pick is pick 45. So I imagine pretty much everyone in the round 2 to 3 range will be available at pick 45. My short list here in rounds 2 to 3 is these 4 players: Ramirez, Burks, Oglesby, and Thad Green. They're all 4-star players on my board. And this is tough. I think Taylor Ramirez would be the number 1 player in this round typically, but if we had already drafted an offensive lineman, I'd honestly like to draft 2. So we'd be losing out on a player in this range, and I really like Taylor Ramirez. I really like Kurt Banks. At least with Oglesby, we know I have a tight end that I like at a very similar level. Like Deshaun Oglesby, I think is like a low range 4-star prospect, where I feel like Bowman, the other Florida tight end, is like a high-end 3. I wouldn't. And we've already drafted an edge rusher here too with Rakeem McKinney. I want these 2 players for sure. We're sacrificing one of them, but we're getting another offensive lineman. So let's just say we go Kurt Banks at pick 45. Then we're talking about pick 65. We haven't gotten tight end yet. I definitely want Justice Bowman, and I definitely want Johnny Lovelock. So now we're talking about maybe having to trade up from the 5th. So our 2 picks in the 3rd round are 65, but then 95. We have the Bengals pick, who they lost, and the Bengals lost in the Super Bowl, so it's very late 3rd. So you can't, depend on a round 3 to 4 player being available at like the actual very end of the 3rd. So we'd probably have to trade up to mid-3rd. Cost us a 5th probably. So let's say we get both of these players in the 3rd. Still have our 4th round pick. Probably go. This is kind of my short list in day 3. Atkinson, Cleet Oliver, Grimes, Matthew Jefferson. Devin Thompson, I know I didn't. What the heck? I know I didn't preview him. I do like him quite a bit, though. He's 21 years old. Another guy who's just like an average athlete, but has good pass block ratings for sure for a day 3 player. He just has like guard only size. And like I prefer my pass blocking heavy players to be tackles. Oh, so we'd probably take John Atkinson in the 4th round. We don't have a 5th, so all of a sudden in the 6th, we're just losing out on a ton of the mid to late round talent. In the 6th, I got to take Eli Palmer. And hopefully Jermaine Bryant or Jesse Byers is there in the 7th. Man, I just feel like we're sacrificing a lot of depth with that. The alternative is we trade down to Rakeem McKinney, pick up maybe a 3rd, maybe a 4th. I'd also be willing to trade down. Like, I think Pat Hayward may be a superstar, but what if he's not? If Pat Hayward is not a superstar, I don't think he's a great pick. He's not a great athlete. He's got good size. He's not going to have it that high of an overall. So you're kind of just hoping he's superstar. So I don't know if I would bank pick 33 on a maybe superstar. So I'd probably trade down into the mid 40s again, maybe pick up another 3rd or 4th. All of a sudden you're talking about Burgess, you're talking about McKinney, and you're talking about getting Ramirez and Banks, maybe even Oglesby. And you're talking about Lovelock And Bowman if you didn't get Oglesby. If you did, maybe even Davenport as well. Talking about maybe getting Atkinson. And Grimes if you haven't gotten Davenport yet, and Oliver. Ah, man. You go for the guy that you're pretty confident is going to be good, or do you want more swings at the bat? That is the decision we have to make here, and it's going to be a tough one. It is going to be a tough one. But, that's something we'll have to just talk about once we start the draft, and I think it is about time to do so. All right, I am ready here. Let's get into the draft. And I mean, I know I'm not going to. Let's just review some offers. Let's just entertain some folk. Give them some hope. There's some terrible offers. This one's the best one. This one's not bad at all, actually. This one is the new best one, maybe. If I was actually ever going to entertain moving down, unfortunately for everyone else in the league, we are not entertaining moving down. We are making the pick. Deacon Burgess, we already know he's an excellent player. He's definitely a great start. If you're building from nothing, building with a player like Deacon Burgess is an incredible start. Let's go. 98 speed, 99 jumping, 95 acceleration at 6 foot 3, 224 pounds at the age of 21. That's the kind of player that can jumpstart a franchise for sure. Super excited to have him on the team and to see where his career can go, with his second chance here on the series. Not on the series, sorry, the channel. And let's get the meat and potatoes of this draft underway here. Howie Dyson goes second overall as a tight end. That is insane. He'd have to be like a generational tight end for that to work. I don't remember there being 2 generational tight end prospects in this draft, so we'll see how that turns out. Andrew Gaines goes next. Donald Norwood, I think, was my second favorite player in this draft. We just were never in range to really get him. As I wasn't trading up from 20 into the top 5 for sure. Like I said, I don't really even have any plans of trading up at all. I'm still not certain what I'm planning to do with anything after the 20th pick. Kind of just want to see, maybe gauge a little bit here. Alex Malone was on our board. We're going to be taking a look at a lot of these players. I'll show Kerry Gilkey. So the Texans, get who we know is an X factor here at pick 13. That's a great pick. Ben Bibbs, he was on our board. Daniel Boss. I thought the defensive tackle class was very solid. Sherrod Armstrong to the Cowboys. Being an Eagles fan, as you can see myself. Don't love that they got a top 5 player at receiver. As we saw, we didn't really preview him because we were never going to draft him, but we know he's a top 5 talent in this draft. Don't know much more about him though. And so far, it's been pretty chalky. We knew Ty Getson was going to go at pick 19. I'm looking to trade towards maybe pick 25 to 26, maybe 27 here. We could get a second trade 27. That was better than I thought. I thought we were getting a late 3 to trade up. Okay, trade back. I want a 2023, so we can go. That's not nearly as good. We can get a 3 and a 6 to go back to 23. We can get a 3 and a 5 to go back to 24. That's too far back because Raheem McKinney would go at pick. Okay, so the 2 most tempting offers here, the Bears, because Raheem McKinney is projected to go to the Bears at 27. The only fear would they trade up to 20 to get Raheem McKinney. That's the fear that you have to have. The next best offer was back here with the Jaguars. We get a 3 and a 5 to move back to 24. This is the safer bet. We also get an additional pick, right? We get the 3 that I was kind of expecting, plus we get a 5. We're definitely in range to get somebody like Raheem McKinney. Or do we risk, if Raheem McKinney goes even one spot higher than he did in the mock draft, we can't select him. Oh, we get a second. We get a top 60 pick. We're risking it. All right. Did the Bears trade up to take the player that we wanted? It took a middle linebacker in Dominic Drayton. Okay. Does Raheem McKinney go in the next few picks prior to our slot? Please don't take him, Eagles. They take running back. And they take tackles, so the risk pays off. And because we got a much better pick than I was thinking, I might be willing to trade back up with the Chiefs at this next pick and take that right tackle. The fact that we got a better deal than I thought. But in case we can only get one, this is the time to decide. Just in case the Chiefs trade doesn't end up working out for us. We take Raheem McKinney. Or do we take Trevor Hall just in case I decide not to trade up? They're both, I want to build a strong offensive line and I want to build a strong defensive line. I think Raheem McKinney is a better edge prospect than Trevor Hall is an offensive line prospect, solely because Trevor Hall is not a great athlete. He is a better in the skills, right? He has so many A's, where Raheem McKinney, he has A finesse moves. And then after that, it's a lot of B's. So, but I think the gap of the athleticism between McKinney and Hall is bigger than the gap of skills that Hall has over McKinney. I'm going to give the slight edge also just because, like I said, I've had him before, so I'm invested in kind of allowing him a second chance at having a career on the channel. I'm going to go with Raheem McKinney. He is hidden dev. Like I said, I knew that. We know he's a star dev, so not a lot of drama here. I already know the first two players. After this, it's going to be all new. 85 strength, 88 speed, 86 acceleration, A finesse moves, B block shed, B awareness, B tackle. Good player. Absolutely good player. Now, do we entertain a trade up here with the Chiefs? Honestly, depends on how much it would cost. Can we do it for just a 5? In fact, we do it for a 5 next year. Is that going to be enough? I doubt it. But if it is, it's pretty close. I'd be willing to give up a 4 next year. You give me a 6 this year. You have a lot of 6. Give me your highest 6. No, that's even less. Just give me a 7 this year. Pick 219. Come on, you can do that. No. Okay. Is this even going through without the 7? No, it's not. Okay. We have to give a 7. That's accepted. So we're taking a little bit off of next year, which you obviously don't want to do, but we're going to have less holes to fill next year than we do this year. This year we have every hole to fill. Next year we'll have some filled. So we have to give up a couple of day 3 picks next year. That doesn't even hurt our ability to draft this year. Maybe later in the draft we can trade back and recoup a couple picks for next year. I think I like that move. I'm not 100% sure. This guy better be hidden dev. If Trevor Hall's not hidden, that is going to be really unfortunate because getting a dev trait up for alignment is nearly impossible. Please be hidden. And he is. Let's go. Only 65 speed and 85 strength. That's not great. It's honestly not great. But in a weak offensive line class at a position that I really, really wanted to hammer and make sure we got going, I'll take it. Hidden dev, super average athlete, but I like what we see. So let's take a look at. Well, first I just want to get to the second round, then we'll take a look at the players on the board. Let's see who we have. We're up in 13 picks. Next guy on our short list, how far down the board is he? We've got Pat Hayward here. He's no longer really on our short list. Tim Shields no longer really on our short list. I don't know if he ever really was. So a lot of the guys on our round 2 to 3 short list are actually pretty far down the board. They should all be here. Okay, this is actually, I hate that this doesn't work. Okay, so Oglesby, Ramirez are both 30 plus spots down the board. And Banks is 40 plus spots down the board. We can safely simulate to our pick, maybe even trade down a little bit, honestly. Not too far though. Tim Shields. Texans are having a pretty good draft. I like Tim Shields. All right, continuing through the draft here. Pat Hayward ends up going to the Giants. Had he made it to our pick at the 13th, I probably would have taken, I don't know, maybe not. I like a lot of these guys in the round 2 to 3 range. Tyron Morrison is a safety that I liked. Let's just see how far. I'd like to maybe get until we're about 15 picks from these guys going. So we could trade down 9 or so spots and still be in a good spot. So we're at pick 13. It's a little bit too far down the board. 51 is what, like 18 or 19? We could pick up 4 next year and a 7 this year. Let's go down to 50. We pick up a 5, 56. We pick up a 4 and a 5 next year. I like that one more. Because at what, 13? We're at 45 right now, so that's 11 slots. It's a little bit much. This is just objectively better than that one. So the Vegas Raiders are now in the lead. Right, those are both 2023, yeah. The Vegas Raiders are now in the lead. It's a little bit too far down. Pick up a 1 next year from the Niners, so they're desperate to get into this draft. It's a little bit too far down. I think this one's like, the Cowboys 1 is barely better than the Raiders 1. $59, where does that leave us? We're at pick 45, so that's 14 slots down. That's too many. I think this Cowboys 1 might be the best for us. What was that other one? That was slightly too far down. Is it the... So this one's 10 slots down. This is about where we want, right? It's a 9 or 10 slots. going to pick this one. We're going to go with this Patriots offer. I said 9 or 10 slots. This is 10 slots down. We get a 4 and a 6 from New England. And if one of the two players that I really like between Ramirez and Banks goes, we'll trade right up to the next pick. I cannot lose out on both of them. Wise I liked, as did I with Northrup. DeAndre Knight's a good, I think, finesse rushing defensive tackle. Nathan Street was a tight end I like. I don't think they got the best tight end in the draft, though. Now we have a conversation. Where are we going here? I don't think we go Thaddeus Green. I think we go one of these two. Ramirez is our last chance of getting a 4-star center, and the same with Oglesby. He's our only 4-star tight end. I do like Bowman, though. I like Oglesby better. So we have a pick coming up also at 226. So we can get 2 of these players. So there's 2 players. Basically, I have to select 2 out of 3 here, right? We have 3 players we really like here in this Kurt Banks, Taylor Ramirez, Deshaun Oglesby range, right? Let's take a look at our draft picks as a whole really quickly. What have we picked up later in the draft? Still only have the 2/3. We now have 2/4 and 2/6. I mean, this puts 7 picks later. We might be able to get a 3rd player in that range. I doubt it, though. Here's my plan. I like a tight end after Oglesby. If he's there at pick 65, we take him. If he's not, we have a backup plan. The other positions, I don't think we really have a backup plan yet. So we're going to go Taylor Ramirez first because he's higher on the board. Hidden Dev, once again, 89 strength, 80 acceleration, 66 speed. We're getting linemen that don't have speed. I don't like that. I typically like all of my linemen to have speed in the 70s. Regardless, we got 2 pieces. We played the hand that was dealt us, right? We got a stud receiver. Sometimes you have to take lackluster at other positions. Maybe they're not perfect prospects, but they're all hidden. So that's a great start. The Eagles better not take Kurt Banks here. They don't. Our next player is going to be Kurt Banks. How far down the board is he? Maybe we could even trade down a little bit. 16 spots, not really. Yeah. Is there another right outside linebacker ahead of him? There is. I'm going to trade down just a couple spots here. I'm not trying to recoup anything of crazy value here. 4th round from the Bengals. That's in interdivisional, but 4th rounder next year. Trying to stay here in the 2nd round this year. Not a lot of opportunities to do so, and the best opportunity to do so thus far is the Bengals. They're offering us a 5. Weren't the Bengals offering us? Or they're offering us a 3 to go down to 64. That's a little risky. We can pick up a 3. So far, every time I've taken a risk, it's worked out for us. Chiefs are giving us a pick next year. So it's between the 49ers. We move down, what is that, 6 spots? Well, that's a next year 3. That's a next year 3. No, then I don't like that one as much then. Where who's the Bengals had the next best offer, right? 5 spots. Oh, that's next year 4 as well. What the heck? Oh, no, that's not. What am I talking about? So this year 4. End of the 4th, but still. So risk. Five spots. I wanted to just move down a couple. Let's reevaluate real quickly again here. Just that one's back. What? That's pick 30. So that one's back 4 slots. It's a much worse pick for a difference of 2 spots, you know. Yeah, the Bengals pick is the Bengals trade is the best. We risk it and risk losing out on Kurt Banks. Is pick 127 worth it? I don't think it is. We're just gonna play it safe here, and take Kurt Banks. I have a bad feeling he would go like right before us if we didn't do this. So we're gonna take Kurt Banks here. 21 years old, 6 foot, 232, elite level athlete. Should be a really good cover linebacker. He is hidden dev as well. Let's go, man. All right. If this is your first video you watched on the channel, I had, wow, 5 drafts with the San Antonio Express. Never did I ever draft a normal dev player in rounds 1 or 2 of that series. Looks like that streak might be continuing here with the Brooklyn Bulls, as it will. Deshaun Oglesby goes to the Chiefs. Dang it. So now we want Bowman. It was always a risk that a screen goes to the Bills. That's a really good pick. At least we think. He's high on our board. Rashad Wilson I liked. So let's talk about our draft board and where we go next. Deshaun Oglesby. We knew we were probably only getting 2 of the 3 players that we liked, right? We weren't going to get all 3. There. So these 2 become my top 2 priorities right now. Let's see how far down the board they are. Whoops. Let's see how far down the board these players are. Lovelock is 19 spots down. And then, okay, we got some room here. Terrence Davenport's right there. Justice Bowman is 40 spots down. Thank you for dropping 30 spots, my sir. Very helpful. It wasn't for injury either. I don't even know what it was for. So 19 spots down. It's only going to probably require a minor trade up from 331 to get him. Probably not going to be able to get Terrence Davenport here. That was, instead of trading back from 33, we traded up from it. That's the price we pay. Is we had to sacrifice 1 or 2 guys here in the late draft. Let's see if we can trade out a few spots, recoup something that we could then use to trade up from 331 though. So let's see, but this is pick 65. That's down 6 slots. This may be a little bit too much. I want to go down like 2 or 3 spots. See if we can get a pick in the 60s here. All they're giving us is a couple 7s here. Next year 5. I mean, we're just talking about picking up, like we're probably just turning around and trading this right back up with the 331. He's 19 slots down. See how many wide receiver slots he is, though. So if he's the top 8 receiver, we might just not risk it. Oh no, he's the 4th receiver on the board. Yeah, I'm willing to trade down. Well, it's a good thing I wasn't considering this. Those are all 2024 picks. Bears don't got nothing for us this round. So the Vikings are currently in the lead. They'll give us a 5th this year for 70. Yeah, that's the leading one right now. Okay, it's going to be the Vikings. They'll give us pick 70. We get a 5th round this year. Receivers start flying. We're going to have to think about moving up for Johnny Lovelock. But we'll see. No receiver. No receiver. No receiver. No receiver. No receiver. Let's go out and let's pick up Johnny Lovelock. Maybe even trade down again. Don't want to risk it though. Going with not Tremaine Conrad here. That would have been a bad mistake. Johnny Lovelock here. We know he's a top 20 talent in this draft. Injury prone, not super athletic, but it's a player I really like. Hidden development once again. Let's go, man. You gotta love it. 87 speed is not the best. 96 agility is great. 92 change direction, 91 acceleration, 85 jumping. Should be an immediate impact slot player for us. Now, I imagine wide receiver is going to be our best position here in year one, which, again, if you followed my Express series, I was like our worst spot on offense was always wide receiver. It felt like we were always behind that wide receiver compared to the other positions on our offense. We are now, there's one tight end ahead of our boy Justice Bowman here, and he's a decent bit ahead. So you imagine he'd go first. 34 slots down. Again, I want to try to be around 15 slots. He's 34 slots away. We're about 20 something. So I probably will go to maybe 15 here, or until that tight end goes ahead of him. Because once he's the top tight end on the board, anything goes. I know 15 might be a little aggressive. We've made some deals here with Patriots in the past. Let's see if we can make another one. $79 to $35, and the 5th that we got. Just off the mark. Let's simulate one more pick. I assume, excuse me, the next pick will work. Let's go trade with the Cowboys. Bulls and the Cowboys. Seem like they're rivals, Bulls and Cowboys. They don't like each other. Hopefully we can come to an agreement here, and they will accept. That'll allow us to come pick up the tight end that we wanted. Wasn't our favorite tight end of the draft, but he was pretty close second. Your Justice Bowman, 22 years old, 6'4", 257. Great at the 3 most important athletic traits. Few A's, a lot of B's. I like this player a lot. Let's draft him, and we get normal dev again. Wow. That is awesome. 84 speed's maybe a little bit lower than I thought he was going to be. Man, the hidden dev streak. How many have we drafted? 2 in the first round, 2 in the second, 2 in the third. 6 straight hidden devs. That is a beautiful start. Obviously been a lot more focused on offense than we have on defense. This is kind of how this draft is shaken up for us. I imagine there's going to be a lot of high-scoring games here. We have 3 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. So we have 7 hidden devs. That's nuts. So we have 2 fours, a 5th, 2 6ths, and a 7th coming up. Might trade one of those picks for picks next year. I'm not going to trade back into the 3rd. I don't think. Let's just take a look just in case it's our favorite sport here. We just go up and we get a running back that we really like at Terrence Davenport. How far down on the board is he? That's not even close to what I was trying to look at. Trying to look at how far down the board he is, man. There we go. Thank you. In terms of running backs, it's just Reggie Levine ahead of him, who would be a sick pick at this rate. I would absolutely trade up for him. 77 overall X Factor. He's 18 slots down. Maybe we go until Reggie Levine is picked, and if he's picked, we'll trade up into the next. We trade up for Terrence Davenport. I like Rashad Grimes. All right, we don't. Didn't love trading up, the idea of trading up anyway, but like Kevin Thomas of the Eagles goes, so now we only have Eli Palmer. We technically have Nick Sessions, a guy that I didn't highlight. He's like the third on the list. The Eagles go get a backup quarterback in Kevin Thomas. All right, so who do we prioritize here at round 4, pick 1? I think at this rate, like how far down they are on the board doesn't really matter. I don't think I love Jonathan Porter all that much. Let's see, he's 23 years old. Yeah, no. It's not going to be him. Not over Eric Stewart's here. I like him. He's 6'3". Marginal jumping and marginal change of direction is hard to overcome, though, if I'm being honest, actually. Catching as well. I think John Atkinson's better. Who do we prioritize here? We have not gotten a secondary player. Want to have at least one player in the secondary that I can feel good about. I also want Rashad Grimes. He's like our last chance at a good running back, I think. There weren't even any good, like, potential UDFA backs. The guys that we have on our board that are potential UDFAs like this, literally it's because his last name is Lovelock. McLaughlin, why do I like him? He's 21 years old, not an awful athlete. Like, that's... Okay. We've done a lot for our offense. I want to do something for our defense. We're going to take John Atkinson here. 6'1", 32 years old, B catching, B press, C man. And he is hidden dev as well. Oh my goodness. 92 speed, 95 acceleration. 85 jumping, 88 change of direction. Oh boy. Are we having a great first draft. Jeez, man. Normally I stop drafting the hidden devs by round 4. We have round 4, pick 9. Let's see how far down on the running back board Rashad Grimes is. Not at all. Still have Nick Jeffrey in case Grimes gets taken in the... But Grimes is my next player, I think. Matthew Jefferson. I like Matthew Jefferson. He was on my short list for day 3. Nick Sessions now gone. Oh boy. Quarterback's starting to look a little risky. We're going Rashad Grimes here. Not an incredible athlete, but he's got a lot of good skills. I think he's going to be a good player. Rashad Grimes. Normal development. The streak ends, man. I thought we might never draft a normal dev. 88 speed, 90 acceleration. Like, those aren't bad for, like, power back numbers, you know what I mean? So, get our power back, at least for the start of the franchise. We'll see if we can upgrade on them later. At this point, we're in day 3. I'd rather just simulate through the drafts here. Please say Eli Palmer has got to be the next pick, right? He's not already taken. He's not. Is there anyone else on our short list for day 3, though, that's still there? Stewart's still there. That's interesting. But no one on our day 3 shortlist. So yeah, I'm not going to risk it. We're going to take Eli Palmer here in the 5th round. The last guy at quarterback, and I don't want to go to the UDFA market for quarterback in year 1. That would be pain. Eli Palmer, also normal development, but 94 throw power, 86 speed, 84 acceleration. He's going to be able to maybe get us out of some tight spots with a little bit of mobility. He's been able to get downfield to our playmaking receivers. I like the pick. And now for round 6, pick 1. Markel Bartel went right before us. We liked him. Let's see what's available on our big board. So we have 2 6th and a 7th left. How many guys do I actually really like? I like Jermaine Bryant. Let's look at Cordell Randall here just for a minute, just for kicks and giggles. Marginal strength, not good enough. I like Jermaine Bryant. I like Jesse Byers. I like Deron Foote. I like Johnny Langford, but he's a fullback. Braylon Worrell. Not really, honestly. Just because he's a 4-star player and he's the last available, we're going to go Jermaine Bryant here. He is normal development, 90 strength, 69 speed, 82 acceleration. 69 speed is obviously nice. 21 years old, normal dev is not surprising, but get a nice young player to fit on the interior of our defensive line. Something we had not drafted yet. So glad to get something there. Next up, I think we go Jesse Byers here. Have not picked a safety yet in this draft. Want one here. 88 speed, 91 acceleration is not bad. Decent size, 21 years old. Just getting a lot of young guys on 4-year contracts here at the end of the draft. And here I want to see if we can't trade for a couple 7s here with our top end of the 7th. I did some research pre-draft, and I'm pretty sure the Buccaneers have 2. So we'll do this. We'll swap 7s next year. Just kidding, we don't have one. Not even close. I think maybe if we offered a 7th round swap next year, it would have worked just to get, one more pick in this draft. What would be good? Langford would be good. Also, a kicker or a punter would be Quentin Wagner. My favorite kicker. A, awareness, C, accuracy, and elite power. Pretty sure he is my favorite there. I have one guy with B accuracy. What's his only good power? Now I'm going to take a corner here, put him on a 4-year deal. Deron Foote will be the last pick here of the draft for us. Normal dev, but 93 speed at 6'1". 23 years old is also unfortunate, but didn't take any kickers or punters or fullbacks. But there's a guy that I liked at a position that's much more valuable, and so I took him. And now let's take a look here at the draft class, and boy, was it a good one. Let's go player by player here, starting off with Deacon Burgess. Already had an idea of what he was in terms of, his ratings, as I've already seen these before, but geez, what a player, man. Playing up to 91 injury, 85 stamina. Turns out mean, it's not great, obviously, but it's not too bad. 80 on all 3 of his route running. Seems like a player that, you know, a person created, but no, this was Madden generated, I promise you, and he will be a captain here of the franchise. And honestly, the leader of this team. Next up, Raheem McKinney. I think as a guy who I do plan on playing a 3-4 here, certainly has a chance to be, you know, an inside-out player that can be super impactful. He will also be a captain of this team. Up next after that, we have Trevor Hall, who comes in at a 73 overall. Maybe a little bit lower than I was expecting, if I'm being honest, but 81 pass block, 80 pass block finesse, 79 pass block power. Run blockings aren't great, but they're not like terrible. Yeah, they're in the 60s, but they're in the high 60s, and they might be able to get up pretty soon. 80 impact block, 79 lead isn't incredible. He's a little bit worse than I was hoping for, if I'm being honest, but still a hidden dev in the 70s, 21 years old. He's certainly somebody that you can build with. The player after him, also a little bit maybe worse than I thought. So the offensive line class maybe not quite as good as I was hoping it would be. But Taylor Ramirez here, 88 impact block is pretty nice, 83 lead as well. A lot of these are in the 70s here. His power, you know, needs a little bit of work with just 70 pass block power and 65 run block power. But should be a long-term center for us for sure here. Kurt Banks comes in as a 72 overall. He 89 speed, 91 acceleration. We already knew that, but 76 tackle is nice. 71 base zone coverage, 66 man, 99 injury is really nice. Definitely needs work as a run stopper. We're going to put in a lot of that work as we develop him, but pretty good coverage linebacker out of the gate. Johnny Lovelock here at 75 overall is looking pretty good to me. 85 short route is awesome. 84 catching, 96 agility. We already knew that, but 88 spin move is quite high. So pretty excited about this player being, you know, the wide receiver 2. Hopefully we can find like a good UDFA that can maybe play outside alongside Deacon Burgess. So that Johnny Lovelock can maybe just be like a full-time slot, but we will have to see there. Next up, we have Justice Bowman, who is a 73 overall at 22 years old. 83 catching, 60 run blocking is maybe a little bit worse than I thought, which is unfortunate, but short route running at 71 is good. Medium at 66 is fine. Kind of just a solid player, nothing spectacular about him, but I think he's a solid tight end for us. He's certainly no Lewis Smart like we got in the Express franchise, but nobody is, if we're being honest. Atkinson here is a 70 as a man coverage, 68 man, 60 zone. Zone obviously needs a lot of work, but he's got some size, he's got some speed. Pretty fine with him being, you know, a long-term corner for us. Him being in the corner 1 this year, maybe a little bit worrisome, but Rashad Grimes is up next. He's actually the second highest rated player on our team at 76 overall. Kind of knew there was a lot of A's when it came to it, you know, his power back skills. 84 break tackle is awesome. 84 trucking is awesome. 83 stiff arm. 92 carrying is awesome. Could probably use, you know, a compliment to him in terms of maybe more of a speed and receiving back, but as a power back, I think he's got some really solid ratings here. This is where we see the drop off here once we get to round 5. Eli Palmer down to a 67 overall, but we've seen that he's got maybe the tools to improve. He's also got maybe some weapons, something that's, you know, going back to Express once again, Devin Hamilton maybe just never had the weapons to maybe develop when he had kind of similar tools. He had, you know, a good receiver and a good tight end, but we've kind of maybe already started with, you know, a better receiver duo than maybe we ever had it with the Express. So could that help him in his development? We will have to see. Jermaine Bryant, pretty good at, you know, the block shedding and the power moves. Doesn't have any finesse moves, also doesn't have the traits to do it, so I'm not too worried about it. But 99 injury and 95 stamina, like 95 stamina for an interior defensive lineman is actually nuts. Normally these guys are like in the 70s with their stamina, so that's something to keep an eye out. Whether he's a long-term nose or a long-term, end as like a run-stopping end remains to be seen. It kind of just depends on what we can get in our UDFA class. Jesse Byers here, 21 years old as well. Comes in with 72 man coverage, 66 zone. If he was a little bit faster, I'd maybe consider putting him into the corner, but he's not. So I think we'll just try to hammer that zone coverage and get him into better true safety there. And then lastly, we have Duron Foote, 67 overall. Got some speed to him, got some zone coverage, needs to work on the man a ton. And so we will certainly do that with him. And that is the draft class. What do you guys think of how we did here in year one? I mean, starting with, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different hidden dev players, including one over 80 overall, and all of these hiddens over 70 overall, and then one other 76 overall non-hidden. I think it's a really good start. I think particularly on offense, we did a lot more. Really, we have 3 of our 8 players are defenders of our hidden dev guys, then 5 are offensive players. So certainly a better start offensively. Maybe in future drafts we can balance that out, or maybe we just have a offense happy team. Let's take a look at the draft in general. Some of the players that we liked that we didn't end up drafting. Howie Dyson, 23 years old, 74 overall. Like, that's kind of an L for a tight end. Taking a look here at his development, only star dev. So, yeah, I kind of feel like that's a little bit of an L. We know they picked an X Factor later, so Donald Norwood, somebody I really liked. I thought he was the second best player in the class. Turns out to be only 73. Maybe a little bit worse of an athlete than I thought too. So, but 99 injury, 96 stamina is really good too. And it's not like 77 base fast moves is anything to sniff at. So solid finesse rusher, and he is superstar dev. So, maybe I was right after all. So superstar dev is awesome pick for the Cardinals there. Charlie Atkins was quarterback. Thought he was a pretty decent looking player. Just, again, I didn't think he looked good enough for me to take him this year. I really would have needed like a generational looking quarterback to take him in year one of a franchise like this. Still a really decent pick for the Seahawks for sure. Let's look for maybe other players on our board. Just take a look at Gary Gilkey. We know he's superstar X Factor, so pretty good pick there by the Texans, maybe making up for their reach early. I want to take a look at Sherrod Armstrong. 76 overall, but normal development, not very fast. Just take a look at the top players in the class in general. Riley J. Levine was, he's sick. We also know he's a 70. He's a 77 overall X Factor with like 86 stiff arm, 84 trucking, super nice carrying. Oh man, what a pick this would have been had I just not known what his development trait was and didn't want to cheat with it. Rashad Grimes is just, 1 overall less than him though. We had a really good safety pick there in round 2. He's 23 years old though, normal dev, not very fast. Not too sad I didn't get him. Let's see, I think it was starting in round 2 that we really started to see guys that were on our board high that we didn't take. Tim Shields was one of them. I mean, 74 speed, 81 accelerations is nice. 84 strength is just 1 less than the guy that we ended up taking. Not nearly as good of a pass blocker, obviously, but still a decent pick. Only 1 overall less as well here for the Texans. And he is superstar. Oh, okay. That's Shields is superstar. And he's a better player as long as our guy isn't. If our guy isn't, then that's a better pick. I think it's pretty close if they both are. Both of them being superstar, though, that's not very highly likely. That is unfortunate, man. Is he on a superstar tackle? Pat Hayward's next. Man, we had a soup. This is what I was talking about. He must have super high catching then. Let's take a look. I mean, he's not that he must, but yeah, 82 catching. See, this is the build that I thought he might have been, and he was, and I didn't take him. No, dude. Oh, how different this draft could have been, eh? So we missed out on 2 superstars, and we picked that tackle, so... Oh, he better be good. He better be good. And Wise ends up being a normal dev player. Good thing I wasn't that high on him. Nathan Street was a tight end that I liked. We didn't preview him, but I liked him a decent bit here. Let's take a look at this Jaguars selection. Okay, Jaguars. Supers. What is with this second round, bro? What build even is this? Superstar X Factor, man. Oh boy. Let's look at Sean Oglesby. Also hidden dev. Better run blocker. Pretty much same athletically. Honestly, really similar players in what I said. He's 1 overall less than Bowman. Very similar players. Star dev. So Bowman is at least star dev as well, so nothing too crazy there. Thaddeus Green I liked. Hidden dev, 70 overall. Dude, what is this draft? I used it just for deconversion. It turns out it's just an insane draft, man. Star dev. Goodness. I also like Rashad Wilson a decent bit. I want to see what his speed is. 78 and 85. Round 3 here. Look at maybe some other players that we missed out on. There's Davenport. He is hidden dev. He's 3 overall less than Grimes. 4 higher speed. Now, a lot worse break tackle. All you really need is a breakout scenario from Grimes, and he's the runaway better pick. You know what I mean? Like, getting a guy that was star out of the gate would be cool. But I think just the fact, like, Grimes is a breakout away from being better in a lot of ways, except for still speed. He's never going to make up the speed, you know? Matthew Jefferson, let's take a look at him. 70 overall. 75 zone coverage is pretty good, man. Would have been a good pick. I mean, I'll still take Atkinson because he was hidden dev, but I want to see Kevin, the quarterback taken by the Eagles. Where was he taking? Kevin Thomas right here. Only 65 overall normal, so not sad about that. The other guy that was on our board, but he was 3rd on our board, was Nick Session. Turns out to be 1 overall higher than Kevin Thomas, but still lower than Eli Palmer, who we ended up taking, so I will not complain about that. Nick Jeffrey was a running back on our board. Hit a dev. So we took the 1 normal running back, but he was the highest overall. So I don't think they're both only star. I'm not sad about the pick. Reggie Levine was obviously the best mid-round running back because he's an X factor and the highest overall. Like, you just don't get better than that. But there's one. I want to see that one pass blocking right guard. Is he any good? Where did he go? Probably went in the 4th round. Right here, Devin Thompson. He's a 73 overall hidden, man. Another guy, not an incredible athlete, though. I just didn't want a ton of not great athletes on my offensive line. Still looks like it would have been a good pick, though, especially if he's a superstar. That's a major L. If we missed 2 superstar linemen, we just missed 1. All right. That's the draft. Let's take a look at what our division rivals did. The Bengals had 1 pick. We did take some of their picks this year, so they're not going to be a ton of picks. Oh, Devin Thompson, we just saw him. So they got a hidden dev right guard in the 4th. That's a steal. So nice job by the Browns there. And last, but certainly not least, maybe, I guess. Yeah. So not a great draft year for our division. They just didn't have a lot of picks. That's fine. No, probably going to be similar next year. Maybe not as egregious, but then after that, we'll start when everyone has, an equal amount of draft picks. We can kind of compare who has the best draft picks. Oh, that's because I was looking at round 4. I am a dummy. Let's go back and there we go. I was like, how do they only have this many picks? So Bengals got 270 plus. I look at everyone that my division drafts at 70 plus overall. They got a hidden dev running back. They have Joe Mixon. I don't know why they're spending the 1st round pick on this. It's not like they're a perfect squad. They can certainly fill some holes, you know what I mean? Rashad Wilson's somebody that I liked. We saw that he was normal depth too. So there we go. That's the draft there for the Bengals. The Browns, let's see what else they got. Just the 1 hidden depth player, still a good. So 2 hidden depth players above 70 in our division. I wonder why, how do you guys only have, Ravens had a terrible draft. Terrible draft. They picked us 65 overall in round 2. Not a great draft for the Ravens. They are coming off the best record in the division, though, so we'll see if they can hold it. I'm going to start signing some UDFAs. If anyone's noteworthy, I don't know what that would be, 67 plus or hidden dev. We'll let you know. Also, if there's any preseason scenarios, I'll let you know. Otherwise, I'll see you at preseason week 4. And as we go through the last of the players that we took here, no face cam for this last part, as this was all stuff I recorded when I wasn't, with the camera. But as I show you the best of the UDFAs that we got, whether with rating or star dev, that first guy we showed was really the only star dev guy we got. I wanted to explain the mentor system that I have in place for this franchise. I allow myself to sign 6 mentor players. These are players that I put at the bottom of the depth chart. They do not play at all, but the purpose that they serve is that they get the, increased XP for players at their position. The goal of this franchise is to make building a team harder. It is not the goal to make developing the players that I draft harder. And so I have 6 mentors at the positions of wide receiver, right tackle, and center on offense, as well as middle linebacker, left end, and corner on defense. We also had a couple of scenarios here in the preseason. The first was the rookie mentor that basically gave Johnny Lovelock a superstar for free, as we saw there. The second was a camp breakout for our off-ball linebacker, Kurt Banks. So a free superstar in the preseason is awesome. It's about as good as you can do. The depth charts aren't quite updated yet, but this will just give us a good look of how we did in terms of acquiring hidden dev players, 70 plus overall players here. Offensively, center, right tackle, tight end, 2 at receiver at star dev, and then we have 1 70 plus normal dev in Rashad Grimes at halfback. I definitely think we built, more of the foundation of this team offense than we did on defense. But let's look at the defense here. Rakeem McKinney, John Atkinson, and then Kurt Banks are the 3 defenders that we drafted at hidden dev. Then we got the only star dev UDFA there in Godfrey. So defense, I still think, is quite a work in progress. As you see, we have a 59 overall starting at one of our outside linebacker spots. Ended up moving Deron Foot to safety. Just felt like with the UDFA corner class, that's what made the most sense for us. Still a long way to go, but I think we did a good job starting this team up. Start playing the games next episode. That will be out soon, and I see you then.